Welcome back. Today we are watching Alone, a movie where a guy decides the best way to survive a zombie apocalypse is to lock himself in his apartment and slowly lose his mind while ignoring everyone. But before that, we have to watch this character make the worst decisions of his life. Let's get into it. Our story begins with our hero Aiden, already messing everything up. He's recording a depressing vlog on day 42 of some mysterious disaster. He decides he's had enough of this plot and sets up a DIY necktie to retire early. But wait, let's rewind to the morning the world actually ended. Aiden wakes up next to a girl who clearly regrets her life choices. He sparks a breakfast joint and struts around his apartment like he owns the place. He finds a check from his parents to pay his rent. Time for a deep dive. Tyler Posey, who plays Aiden, actually has a ton of tattoos in real life. The makeup department probably took one look at him and said, "Yeah, we're not covering those. Let's just make his character a giant man-child who still gets an allowance." He turns on the TV to find the emergency broadcast system blaring. Stepping outside, he's just in time to see a helicopter doing its best impression of a fiery lawn dart. Down in the courtyard, his neighbors are playing the world's most aggressive game of tag. Suddenly, his neighbor Brandon knocks on the door, begging for shelter. Brandon turns around, revealing he just received a very aggressive, very permanent hickey from his roommate. Aiden does the only logical thing. He grabs a kitchen knife and kicks the bleeding man out. Honestly, I respect it. If my neighbor asked to bleed on my rug, I'd evict him too. The news anchors tell everyone to stay inside and avoid contact, which is great news for introverts. Aiden gets a text from his parents saying they can't reach him and to just stay alive. He writes this incredibly obvious piece of advice on a sticky note and slaps it on a family photo. Fast forward a bit, and the news explains this virus turns people into raging, hungry monsters. With nothing else to do, Aiden decides to become a vlogger, documenting his descent into madness. By day 16, the news goes completely dark. Isolation is already turning his brain into mashed potatoes. He's making vlogs about sensory deprivation, which is just a fancy way of saying he's losing his absolute mind. Because nothing says, "I have my life together," like smashing your own mirror. 7 years of bad luck is the least of his worries right now. Suddenly, his front door flies open, and a very aggressive neighbor invites herself in, so he gives her a quick lesson in home security. He drags his new roommate to the bathroom and barricades the door with a surfboard. Time for a deep dive. The script originally called for a heavy dresser here, but they went with a surfboard to show his California roots bro. A zombie could sneeze on that foam board and break it. Days blur together. He's brushing his teeth, counting tally marks, and recording more depressing vlogs about how cowardly he is. His pity party is interrupted by a ringing phone. It belongs to the girl he just put in the bathroom timeout. He listens to a voicemail from her parents begging her to stay safe, and the guilt hits him like a freight train. He completely breaks down on the floor, realizing he just permanently retired somebody's daughter. But eventually, he finds his courage, grabs his trusty bat, flips off his own apartment, and steps into the hallway. He finds a guy who's missing a few chunks of his anatomy and instantly gets ambushed by the local track team. He nopes right out of there, sprinting back the way he came. He barely makes it back to his room and upgrades his barricade game from a surfboard to a full refrigerator. I love how he went outside for exactly 30 seconds, realized the apocalypse was actually dangerous, and immediately retired from being an action hero. He celebrates his survival by smoking a cigarette shirtless in the dark. His mind starts wandering to memories of his ex-girlfriend and a picture frame with a sticky note telling him to stay alive. He tapes up his windows, fully committing to the hermit lifestyle. But the isolation finally breaks him. He decides he's tired of this game and starts inspecting the ceiling fixtures for an early exit. About to take the final plunge, he spots a blonde across the courtyard and instantly decides his early retirement plan is canceled, bringing the entire ceiling down with him. I swear to God, the sheer power of a pretty girl is unmatched. This man was literally seconds away from the game over screen, but the moment he sees a woman, he's suddenly fighting for his life. He immediately pivots from suicidal to simp, firing up his dying camera to announce he met a girl and spending the night doing arts and crafts. The next day, they start their little post-apocalyptic pen pal session. He introduces himself as Aiden. She writes back Eva, and she immediately calls him out for having pre-written stalker signs, which is a totally fair point. Who just has "I won't hurt you" written on a piece of paper ready to go? That is serial killer behavior 101. He flexes his massive stash of bottled water, and she hits him with the bad for the environment joke. Time for a deep dive. The whole communicating through windows with signs trope is a classic isolation film staple, heavily popularized by Hitchcock's Rear Window. Though Hitchcock probably wouldn't have included a joke about plastic waste during a literal flesh-eating apocalypse. Priorities, people. Later that night, Aiden decides to take a completely unhinged outdoor nature shower in the rain. The next morning, Eva hits him with the wake-up sign, and he notices some fresh red paint smeared across the courtyard floor. He asks if she has a baseball glove and tries to toss her a care package using a makeshift rope. But suddenly, a corporate zombie decides to crash the balcony party. This guy in a suit starts scaling the building like a rabid Spider-Man. Eva is trapped, and Aiden is stuck watching from the cheap seats. So he goes full caveman, grabbing a baseball bat and smashing his own window to distract the suit. The distraction works, sending the zombie taking a massive tumble, giving his own arm a custom ventilation hole. So he decides to play a little game of hallway roulette. And jackpot, he finds a neighbor taking a permanent dirt nap right outside. Looks like someone took a massive bite out of this guy's thigh. Aiden politely borrows his keys because property rights don't really apply during the apocalypse, and slips into the dead guy's apartment. This is the part where any sane person would lock the door and stay quiet. But horror movie protagonists have an allergic reaction to common sense. He starts snooping around in the dark, completely ignoring the modern art masterpiece of red paint smeared all over the walls. He finds the missus taking a snooze on the bed, also sporting a matching missing chunk of flesh aesthetic. But who cares about the deceased when there's peanut butter in the fridge? Our boy starts going to town on that Jif like it's his last meal. Time for a deep dive. Did you know peanut butter actually has a shelf life of about 6 to 9 months? So his whole "this stuff never goes bad" line is factually incorrect. The writers clearly didn't consult a survivalist or a grocery store clerk. He hits the jackpot again, discovering the previous tenant was a rock climbing bro. He starts stuffing carabiners and ropes into his bag like he's hitting up an REI closing sale. He even finds a sweet climbing axe under the bed. But remember the Sleeping Beauty? Yeah, she's awake now, and she's not a morning person. To make matters worse, her roommate bursts through the door. Aiden gets tossed around the room like a ragdoll, until he introduces the guy to his shiny new climbing toy. He just permanently retired that dude. I swear to God, he had the axe in his hand the whole time and still decided to try wrestling the guy first. Just swing the metal pointy thing, my guy. Having thoroughly overstayed his welcome, he sprints back to his own apartment and barricades the door. He dumps out his loot And amidst the climbing gear, he finds the holy grail of isolation, a pair of walkie-talkies. The sheer joy of potentially hearing another human voice breaks him down into a puddle of tears. Victory lap is cut short by a mild case of extreme PTSD. He's currently hyperventilating next to a bathtub that looks like it was painted with a ketchup cannon. He decides to cope the only way millennials know how: binge eating. And what does he find? The holy grail of apocalyptic cuisine: Twinkies. Time for a deep dive. Despite the urban legend, Twinkies do not survive a nuclear fallout. So either this zombie outbreak is fresh, or Aiden is currently eating a sponge cake made of pure penicillin. She is understandably furious that he went on a solo loot run without telling her. He promises to build a rope bridge out of bedsheets to bring her some food. Because nothing says safety like dangling between two skyscrapers on a rope made of 200 thread count cotton. But then the conversation takes a massive left turn. Eva mentions that her refrigerator is pushed up against her front door. Aiden asks the million-dollar question: "Did you move the refrigerator?" She says no, which means someone or something is inside her apartment right now. I swear to God, the survival instincts on this woman are non-existent. If your heavy appliances start rearranging themselves, you don't just stand there and chat on the radio. Aiden rushes out to help, but gets distracted by a massive hole in the wall. And out pops the final boss of the retirement home, armed with a squeegee taped to some knives, a true master of improvised weaponry. Turns out this guy is a fellow looter who smashed through the drywall weeks ago. He casually mentions that his roommate checked out early in the bathtub, which completely explains the ketchup-painted bathroom Aiden was crying in earlier. To smooth things over, the old man offers Aiden some mystery meat on a plate, and Aiden just eats it, no questions asked. Look at this guy. You're in a zombie apocalypse. A stranger climbs out of a hole in the wall, offers you a brown slab of meat, and you just start chewing? Have you never seen a movie? They then sit down for a deeply depressing chat about how doomed they all are. The old man basically admits he's given up on finding a cure. But Aiden isn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. He's got a neighbor to save. Motivational pep talk. Edward drops the heaviest lore bomb of the day. And his grand retirement plan involves letting her have him for dinner. I get that till death do us part is a legally binding contract, but becoming a human Happy Meal is taking your wedding vows a bit too literally. Before Aiden can even process this horrific therapy session, Edward tells the kid to run, accepting his fate as a late-night appetizer. Aiden bolts back to his apartment, grabs his trusty bonking stick, and radios Eva to let her know her knight in shining armor is on the way. As he's forced to play high-stakes dodgeball with the infected neighbors. Time for a deep dive. The classic bedsheet rope escape. In reality, a standard cotton sheet tears at about 150 pounds of force. He rappels down like a budget Spider-Man, only to get ambushed by a very aggressive bald guy. Aiden delivers a swift eviction notice with his shotgun and scrambles up the side of the building before the noise attracts the whole block. Eva pulls him over the railing, and they share a brief moment of, "Holy crap, we're actually alive." But the honeymoon phase lasts exactly 3 seconds, because the hallway is suddenly swarming with uninvited guests. Why do survivors always run into the stairwell? It is literally a concrete funnel of death with 0 exits. Have these people never watched a single George Romero film in their entire lives? Realizing the stairs are a terrible idea, they pivot back to Eva's apartment. Aiden uses his adrenaline rush to shove a massive refrigerator in front of the door, completely ignoring the fact that his spine should be snapping like a twig right now. Because nothing says impenetrable fortress quite like a Samsung smart fridge. With the door secured and the adrenaline crashing, they finally lock lips, proving that the zombie apocalypse is honestly just an extreme, high-stakes matchmaking service. That's it. If you enjoyed watching me suffer through this masterpiece of bad decisions, like and subscribe. I'm going to therapy. See you in the next one.